This is not a test. This is your emergency broadcast system announcing the commencement of the annual
haunting
sanctioned by the
spirits of the further.
Class 4 and lower have been authorized for use during
possessions.
All other weapons are restricted.
Spirits, lost souls, and wanderers
have been granted immunity from the
protective incantations
and shall not be harmed. Commencing at the siren, any and all crime, including murder, will be legal for 12 continuous hours. Police, fire, and emergency medical services will be unavailable until tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. when the
Wait.
concludes. Blessed be our new founding fathers and America, a nation reborn. May God be with you all.
Watch us spill your beans, dummy. Keep away! The sours must spill your
that pact we made?
Kind of.
We promised to never leave each other.
Never ever.
Never ever. And if you die, I'll come back.
Do you know that tomorrow is the anniversary of Mom and Dad's death?
Tibetan Book of the Dead? I'm assuming it's about death.
It tells you how your spirit comes out from your body after you die. At first, you can see all your life reflected in a magic mirror. And then you see these lights, all these different lights, of all different colors.
Alex is gonna make you a junkie.
I know, I'm not a junkie. Come on.
It's not your friend. We're gonna be like a family from now on. Just you and me.
Have a guy in this shoot!
Do you remember that pact we made? We promised to never leave each other, no matter what.
Enter the Void. Director Gaspar Noé or Gaspar Noé, starring Nathaniel Brown, Paz de la Huerta, and Cyril Roy, with a Metascore of 69, 7.3 out of 10 on IMDb, and a whopping 72% on Rotten Tomatoes. Not bad, C-. Released on September 24th, 2010. Grossing $336.5 thousand internationally, which is nothing like a Marvel movie at all. Those are car facts, but what are the brain snacks? Into the Void is just as much of a science fiction film that explores the enigmatic mysteries surrounding the journey into the astral unknown. The identity of the film isn't comparable to a fantastic space opera, nor does it explore the abstract concepts of alien invaders, yet it reveals the innate nature to latch onto the only reality we know of yet can experience. The experience of pretending to live, refusing to die, and the inevitability of keeping an ersatz empathy as a false sake of hope. The mystery is in the journey we experience as this movie dedicates itself to the meaning of abstract art, that reason being to be provocative, to be nonsensical at times, to disturb the mind and shift its understanding of life itself, to get completely zooty without a sip of absinthe and without a puff of Lucifer's lettuce. Set in a neo-lit nightclub environments of Tokyo, and it follows a young American drug dealer, of course, he's white, who gets shot by the police. Pow. He then continues to observe succeeding events during an out-of-body experience. The film is shot in a first-person view in the perspective of Oscar as he recalls moments from his past. The cinematic experience itself is the main focus of the film, but there is also a central theme of emptiness. Noé describes the film subject as, quote, the sentimentality of mammals and the shimmering vacuity of the human experience, end quote. The dramaturgy after Oscar has been shot is loosely based on the Tibetan Book of the Dead and ends with the spirit's search for a way to reincarnate. The director, who opposes all religious beliefs because he's atheist or agnostic, secular, says that, quote, the whole film is a dream of someone who read the Tibetan Book of the Dead and heard about it before being shot by a gun. It's not the story of someone who dies, flies, and is reincarnated, but is the story of someone who is stoned when he gets shot and who has an intonation of his own dream, end quote. We see vignettes of Oscar's life play out as an over-the-shoulder framing motif drags the uncanny degree of separation from our own body. We are now experiencing death and eventually life as Oscar. Oscar's viewpoint rises and looks at his body from above, and then we begin to witness his life in a roughly chronological order. His loving parents were killed in a violent car crash. Oscar and Linda, devoted to each other, were sent to different foster homes. Their brother and sister, by the way. Oscar moved to Tokyo and earned money through drug dealing, baby, until he could afford to live or bring Linda to live with him. Linda found work as a stripper for the nightclub owner, Mario, to Oscar's distress. Oh man, Oscar increased the scope of his dealing operations and started using potent psychedelics, in particular DMT, more frequently. And then Victor discovered that Oscar slept with Victor's mother, and finally we began to see Oscar meet Victor at the Void, a club, to sell him drugs, only to be posed up. To be, that's the word, he was like set up. Yeah, he was set up, only to be shot in a bathroom. Dang, that would suck to like die in a porta potty ass bathroom.
Oh shit, here we go again.
Dirty Tokyo nightclub bathroom. Anyways, next, what happens in the film, because I'm giving you the whole rundown of the film, the whole film summary basically. Next, a disembodied Oscar floats over Tokyo and witnesses the aftermath of his death. Linda becomes withdrawn and despondent, especially after getting an abortion, from Victor, of course. Oscar's dealer, Bruno, destroys his stash. Alex lives in hiding on the streets, and Linda wishes she could have been with Alex instead of Mario, as Oscar had wanted. Oh wait, with Mario's baby. With one of their babies, I don't know. With a baby, a child, the spawn of the devil. On one occasion, Linda wishes that Oscar would come back to life, Oscar then enters Linda's head. He's like, after which he wakes up at the morgue. Linda and Mario arrive and pick him up, but they are disgusted by his appearance, and he's unable to speak, He's just like in his body, just like chilling. Oscar is eventually convinced that Alex has really been torched or cremated, and he returns to watch his friends from a floating perspective. He's just like floating again. Victor screams at his mother because she had sex with his friend and is thrown out of his parents' home. And he shows up at Linda's apartment, apologizes to her for having, her brother killed, basically. But he says Linda's partially to blame since she, hung around with creeps, and he's gaslighting her a bunch. And then Linda's angry to retort is that Victor should basically go, I don't want to say this lightly, but go himself. Oscar then hovers high above Tokyo, about like 5 feet, and enters an airplane. Oh, so like 5,000 feet. Where you see, wait, how high do airplanes fly? If Oscar can fly high and he's soaring above the sky, how high can airplanes be ablaze? If Oscar is astral projecting or he's in the void doesn't have any dimension. So Oscar can't fly. He's imagining it. So he goes and he enters the airplane. He's like inside, but then he sees his mother breastfeeding a baby to whom she whispers Oscar's name, which is his name, which is Oscar. The view then drops to Linda and Alex, who take a taxi to Tokyo Love Hotel and have prolonged, passionate sex. Huh. Wow. That's where she gets pregnant. Oscar moves between hotel rooms and observes several other couples in the company having sex in various positions. That's like the Kama Sutra, because that's like another of like the Eastern beliefs. And he's like, oh, I want to combine these, but this director's white. So like, what's up with that? Yeah, he observes everyone. He's like creeping, basically. He's like ghost creeping. I feel like ghosts do that, like ghosts would be the ones to creep on people while they're doing stuff, like intimate stuff, or like fighting, or like sleeping even. Like sleep paralysis, like not the demons, but sleep paralysis figures or souls or spirits, whatever they are. They're just like creeping on people. Anyways, so Each couple emanates a pulsating, diffuse electrical glow from their lower torsos, which is actually one of the chakras. I think it's the 6th chakra. I'm not really sure, actually, so I don't know. Asgard enters Alex's head and then witnesses the sex with Linda from Alex's point of view, which is really weird. He then travels down inside Linda's birth canal to witness Alex's thrusting, which is also very weird, and follows the ensuing semen into the fertilization of his sister's ovum. The final scene is shot from the perspective of a baby being born to an out-of-focus woman who is presumably Oscar's former sister, Linda. According to the director, this is actually a flashback to Oscar's birth in the form of a false memory. So he is either reincarnated into another member of the family, of his own family in some way, or it's his own birth. And he's just like inside his mom's coochie, basically, in the worst way possible. Noé describes the ending of the film as Oscar's recollection of the most traumatic moment of his life, his own birth. Is it really? We don't remember that. So is it really trauma if we don't remember? Because trauma is basically triggers of memory. So, I mean, Noé seems really problematic. So that's what I'm talking about. The director also leaves open the possibility that Oscar's life starts over and over again in an endless loop due to the human's brain's perception of time, very limited to our understanding of anything, because we are very ignorant. And so the idea of the film had been growing since Noé's adolescence, when he first became interested in matters of death and existence. In his early 20s, while under the influence of course, psilocybin mushrooms, he saw Robert Montgomery's Lady in the Lake, a 1947 film shot entirely in a first-person perspective. He then decided that if you ever made a film about the afterlife, that was the way in which it would be filmed. Noé had been working on different versions of the screenplay for 15 years before the film went into production, and the story had initially been more linear, and the drafts were set in, different locations, including the Andes, the France, and New York City, actually. So, but Tokyo was actually, the final city is chosen because it could provide colorful environments required for the film's hallucinogenic aspects, and because Japan's repressive drug laws add to the drama of it, explaining the intensity of the main character's fear of the police. And he's a drug dealer. And he's white. Noé first tried to get the film funded in the early 2000s. Several producers actually responded positively to the script, and it was briefly under development for Tom Tykwer's German company, X-Film Creative Pool. It was considered too expensive, and the producers dropped out. Prospects changed when Irreversible 2002 became a commercial success, and Noé had written and directed Irreversible for Studio Canal, and it was sold internationally by their subsidiary, Wild Bunch. When the producers of Wild Bunch asked Noé what he wanted to do next, he answered, "Enter the Void." No, it wasn't a threat. He was like, "Enter the Void." But he was like, "I want to do the movie, and it's called Enter the Void, probably, because I'm still working on the title. And let me take some DMT, and then I'll come back to you," or something like that. So the project was once again considered too expensive, of course, because probably the CGI experience. 2010, there's Marvel movies coming out in 2008, so I'm not sure if it was actually that expensive. I don't really, maybe it was the back and forth, oh, it's too abstract, people aren't going to like it or understand it. And he's like, you know what? You are correct. The project was way too expensive in relation to its commercial potential, but when Wild Bunch discovered that Noé had started the development of the film for Path instead of them, they said that they were willing to fund it because they were jealous. So since development went slowly at Path, Noé chose to not renew his contract with the studio and accepted Wild Bunch's offer. He was like, "You're a Wild Bunch, hey, aren't you? You like that? You want to get an abstract film like Cafe going on a la Papy?" I think it was French, right? Yeah. Enter the Void was produced under Fidelite Films, with 70% of the budget invested by Wild Bunch. French co-producers include Noé's company Les Cinémas de la Zone and the visual effects studio BUF Buff Compagnie. It received pre-sales investment from Canal Plus and funding from Euromages. Additional co-production supported was provided by Central Film Production of Germany and BIM Distribution of Italy. The total budget was about 12.38 million euros, so they did not make a return at all, basically. That sucks, am I right, ladies? 80s. In retrospect, Noé called Irreversible a bank robbery, a film made in order to finance Enter the Void. He also saw it as a helpful technical exercise, and they both did not have return. But what was the visual concept of the film? Well, Noé dabbled with various hallucinogens in his youth, but not, as a wee lad. I'm sure he was 20s. He was in his 20s or something, hopefully. Hopefully he was also responsible in a safe place for it, but, one never knows. And he used those experiences as inspiration for the visual style, actually. When he started planning the film, he tried the psychoactive brew of ayahuasca, which was, highly active substance known as DMT, baby. This was, of course, consumed in the Peruvian jungle where the brew is legal due to its traditional use of an ethogen. Since Noé was one of the only ones who on the design team experienced DMT in such intense visions, he had to collect them and provide other visual references in forms of paintings, photographs, music videos, and excerpts from other films. One of the references was the works of biologist Ernst Haeckel, whose drawings depicted the symmetrical patterns seen during Oscar's visions. Noé was also heavily inspired by the stylistic choices of many experimental oeuvres of Kenneth Anger's films, particularly Inauguration of the Pleasure Dome. Other notable influences include Jordan Belson and Peter Chkosky. Noé's favorite film, 2001: A Space Odyssey by Stanley Kubrick, displayed, hypnotic sequences through a space and time wormhole, baby, with abstract geometrics and stimulating imagery, philosophies that can support the story of the transition from life to death. One of the philosophies is non-reductive physicalism. So non-reductive physicalism is the idea that while mental states are physical, they're not reducible to physical properties, in that an ontological distinction lies in the differences between the properties of mind and matter. According to non-reductive physicalism, all mental states are casually reducible to states where mental properties map to physical properties and vice versa. So a prominent form of non-reductive physicalism called anomalous monism was produced by Donald Davidson in his 1970 paper Mental Events, in which he claims that mental events are identical with physical events and that the mental is anomalous. An example, under their mental descriptions, these mental events are not regulated by strict physical laws, so they are produced, reproduced, and reoccurring mentally instead of physical aberrations, sort of like a dream state. Another philosophy is the occasionalism. Occasionalism is a philosophical doctrine about causation, which says that created substances cannot be efficient causes of events, while instead, all events are taken to be caused directly by God himself. The theory states that the illusion of efficient causation between mundane events arises out of a constant conjunction that God has instituted himself, such that every instance where the cause is present will constitute an occasion for that effect to occur as an expression of the aforementioned power. This occasioning relation, however, falls short of efficient causation. And in this view, it is not the case that the first event causes God to cause the second event. Rather, God first caused one and then caused the other, but chose to regulate such behavior in accordance with general laws of nature that he's, established. Some of its most prominent historical exponents have been Alcazli, Louis de la Forge, Arnaud Guellings, and Nicolas Malebranche. I didn't say any of those names right, but anyways, the director, talking to Noé, he, of course, like I mentioned, opposes all religious beliefs. I'm not sure if he's like secular, agnostic, Zoroastrian. No, he has a belief. So he says that, quote, "The whole movie is a dream of someone who reads the Tibetan Book of the Dead and heard about it before he was shot by a gun." He wanted to reiterate that he's like non-religious aligning. So anyways, what is this Tibetan Book of the Dead that I keep on mentioning? Well, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, or the Bardo Fiddle. Bardo Fiddle, baby. Oh my god. The Bardo is the intermediate state, the transitional state, or the in-between state, liminal state, which is synonymous with the Sanskrit Antarabhava. The term is used loosely in references to the state of existence intermediate between two lives on Earth. And this concept arose soon after the Buddha's passing, with a number of earlier Buddhist groups accepting the existence of such an intermediate state, while other schools actually rejected it. And the Thos Grol. Thos means hearing as well as philosophical studies. Grol means liberation, which is synonymous with the Sanskrit word bodhi, or awakening, understanding, enlightenment, and is also synonymous with the term nirvana, blowing out, extinction, and the extinction of illusion. A quote by Padmasambhava, liberation through hearing during the intermediate state, commonly known in the West as the Tibetan Book of the Dead, text from a larger corpus of teachings, the profound dharma of self-liberation through the intention of the peaceful and wrathful ones, and is one of the best works of the Nyingma literature. Nyingma being one of the oldest four schools of the Tibetan Buddhism. According to Tibetan tradition, the liberation through hearing during the intermediate state was composed in the 8th century by Padmasambhava, also known as Guru Rinpoche, an incarnated fully enlightened being, as foretold by Buddha Shakyamuni, written down by his primary student, Yesh Saogyal. and buried in the Gampur Hills in central Tir, and subsequently discovered by Tibetan Torin Karma Lungpa in the 14th century. The Bardo Thoskrol. The Tibetan isle is Bardo Thoskrol, liberation through hearing during the intermediate state. And it consists of 2 comparatively long texts. Is read to the dead for 49 days, which is believed to be typical time it takes from the dead to pass on. The great liberation through hearing is the supplication of the Bardo of Dharmata. The Bardo of Dharmata, including the Bardo of dying. Great liberation through hearing is the supplication painting out the Bardo of existence. And the 3 Bardos. The Bardo Thadol differentiates the intermediate state between lives into 3 bards. Number one being the Chikai Bardo, or Bardo of the moment of death, which features the experience of the clear light of reality, or at least the nearest approximation of which one is spiritually capable of experiencing. Number 2, the Choyid Bardo, or Bardo of the experiencing of reality, which features the experience of vision of various Buddha forms, or the nearest approximation of which one is spiritually capable of experiencing. Number 3 being the Sidpa Bardo, or Bardo of rebirth, which features karmically impelled hallucinations which eventually result in rebirth. Typically, Yabiyam, imagery of men and women passionately entwined. And the Yabiyam is translated with Tibetan to father and mother. And it's a common symbol in the Buddhist art of India, Bhutan, Nepal, and Tibet. It represents the primordial union of wisdom and compassion, depicted as a male deity in union with his female consort through the similar idea of interpenetration or coalescence, using the concept of Indra's net to illustrate this. The Book of the Dead in other cultures. With the beginning of humanity came the curiosity of the afterlife. Cultures have been exploring the transition from life to death since way down the line. Way there, which is an illusion. And so basically they've been, thoughty since we had our bodies, right?
Yeah!
The Egyptians, the Mayans, the Incas, the Aborigine, the Nordic, the Pygmy, and other indigenous peoples of Africa, the native peoples of the Western continents, literally everyone and their mom were curious about the afterlife and the process of that transition, the transitional period, who or what guides us, dimensions, and when and how it happens. I have the answer, you see, and I will reveal it once you subscribe to their Patreon. Leave a 5-star rating and share some of these episodes to other people so they too can waste their time hearing this nonsense. Thank you. I've been Problematic Paul. This is Problematic Philosophies. We have social media. We only have a Twitter. We only have that's it. Patreon. Give us money, please. Thank you. Bye.